Thank you, Sony Pictures Television. And now, without further delay, it's my pleasure to call up the Comedy Masterclass with Dan Harmon, creator, writer, and executive producer of Community.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, I don't need I have a mic on my shirt. We'll open it up in a little bit with my lovely fiance, who's going to moderate and give you most of the information that you probably want creatively. But Banff is unique in that I don't know how many of you are writers, writer-producers, creative executives, development people, independent speculators, and I may never have another chance to talk to an executive again. And so I prepared a little, I took the master class part a little seriously, did a little PowerPointy thing with some notes. It should go quickly and be relatively painless. Can we start my presentation? Yes, okay, comedy, yes. My name is Dan Harmon. I'm here to give you a master class in comedy because, as everyone in comedy knows, the key to humor is explanation. So, comedy. Aristotle said that comedy is simply the opposite of tragedy. It is simply a happy ending. That's all it needs to be. Today we say comedy is the Big Bang Theory, which is not a happy ending for me. But, you know, TV is Darwinian and my frog had one eye, so in the United States, and therefore in Canada and the entire world, you're welcome. Comedy is an industry. It's a product. It's a mineable resource. Historically, comedy has been a mineable resource that we use to pacify the actual miners of actual resources. Without comedy, these guys start asking questions that these guys don't want asked. Like, why is my life a tragedy? And who took all my stuff before I was born? That's why those guys up there need guys like us, comedy writers. But historically, these guys and these guys, they don't get along so well. The Monopoly guy doesn't want to talk to that guy, and that guy doesn't want to talk to anybody. Which is why historically what was needed was this guy. This is the suit. He's the producer, aggregator, development, executive. They call themselves many things. The writers used to call them suits. I still do. And I don't know if there's any of them in the room right now, but I know that you are merely descended from this particular breed if you are. And I want to talk to you because historically this guy, in order to survive his very difficult position, had to adapt some very specific traits that didn't necessarily lend themselves to making good television. Because it's a difficult position to be directly below the people that want to control the world and directly above the people that just want to fart on it to prove their gym coach is wrong. This guy, therefore, needed to be hard-hearted. He needed to have a dual persona. He needed to be reptilian. And he needed to really be bad at everything that he's supposed to be good at, because if you're too good at helping writers, then you get fired by the guys above you. If you're too good at serving the guys above you, word spreads. We talk to each other. And so this poor guy, you know, we don't feel too sorry for him, but he was a very specific breed. Also, he's not funny because he can't be, because it's a joyless occupation. Yeah, that's historically, but history is changing, and I made a graph. I actually just found this graph. I think it's of history changing. History is changing so much that by the year 2050, they say that most of our history will be identical to our current present. And as history changes, technology changes, and technology always fragments media. I'm sure you guys have been on a million seminars where you've talked about this. There used to be, for instance, one magazine, literally called Life. It was just the only topic. It was a magazine about life. But then as technology for printing magazines got more efficient, more available, more cost-effective, you fragment that media into subtopics of life like ninjas and cat fancy and Mark Wahlberg. And the same thing is going to happen with, we watch the same thing happen with the music industry, and we're watching it happen right now with television. It's going to happen to all media. All media gets fragmented, resulting in specialized content, more of it for smaller audiences, which presents more opportunities for everybody at much, much less pay. But it also means that for some of you in this room, if there are any former suits in this room, any of the new breed, you get a chance to evolve. Gone is the lumbering reptilian suit, the victims of their own refusal to adapt. Scurrying from the shrubs and hollow logs to seize the world from them, the sweater. Now you've seen this guy, right? There are the obvious cosmetic differences. If you've survived this far, then we know that you're, for instance, warm-blooded. We know that you're sexually discreet. We know that you're substance averse and cross-platform compliant. But a good number of you working in comedy have retained some reptilian traits. Some of you still insist on being dangerously unfunny, in spite of the sweater. Still others think your job is to work with both sides of the line between the monopolies and the manic depressives. And I'm here to tell you, first of all, that you are funny if you're one of these guys. And I'm here to tell you that the time is coming when you may have to pick a side. And I'm here to tell you from my admittedly biased position that the viewers and the writers and everybody but the worst people in the world desperately need you to pick the right side. So how do I know that you're funny? Because everyone is. Everyone here has been laughed at. Some of us have bad memories of being laughed at in ways beyond our control. Some of us won't even allow ourselves those memories. The risk of pain is too much, and we've been trained that good, healthy people aren't the butt of jokes. We've been trained that good, healthy people do the joking. Some of us believe that jokes are assertions of one person's will over another's, or demonstrations of wit, or psychological weapons. Some of us live in terror of not getting the right joke at the right time, exposing ourselves as stupid or unhip. And I'm not saying that any of these fears aren't valid, but because comedy, like fire or anything powerful, can burn, and it can scar, and it can destroy. I'm only saying that if you fantasize about being funny, and you feel it somehow eludes you, it's possibly because your relationship with comedy is so beset with complication that you're setting yourself up to fail. So if you think you're unfunny, your understanding of what comedy really is may have gotten needlessly bound up. And by the way, if you do think you're funny, I mean, what kind of pompous ass are you? No one likes those people either. Suffice it to say, whether you think you're unfunny or think you're funny, I think we can all benefit from resetting our definitions of what comedy really is, what the purpose of it is, what the root of it is, and what the possibilities of it are, and releasing our chokehold on the concept. We know from anthropologists that it's very likely every person in this room experienced our first laugh by way of the same joke, which seems to be a human constant in every corner of every continent. It's called peekaboo. And if you haven't heard it in a while, it goes like this. Hey, look at me, here I am, I'm probably your mommy, although it's perfectly acceptable, if not an advancement for me to be Neil Patrick Harris. In any case, here I am, and then it's, uh-oh, where did I go? I'm gone, oh shit, peekaboo, I'm back. It doesn't seem as funny now that we've seen like Seinfeld and stuff, but maybe I can make it funnier by explaining the joke. Humans are unique among primates in their total physical helplessness during infancy. They can't just grip their mother's fur and keep quiet to stay out of trouble. So human babies smile when a human face is near theirs, and they cry if it goes away for too long. And they cry until it comes back. As the theory goes, peekaboo causes a terrified shriek, interrupted by a welcoming smile, and as it's repeated, the baby becomes participant in the contradiction, resulting in a convulsive, contagious sound as unique to our species as our vulnerability, as unique to our species as consciousness itself. In other words, our first laugh is us getting one over on our worst fears. So if you're afraid you're not funny, if you're afraid of spiders, if you're afraid of that your neighbor's racist, if you're experiencing the least funny feelings in the world, you are not only halfway to a great joke, but you're already through the hard part. The second half is conquering it by sharing it. That's comedy. It sheds new light on Aristotle's definition. Tragedy is a sad ending. Comedy is a happy one because our real lives end in death. That's misconstrued to mean that tragedy is more realistic, that reality is tragedy and comedy is a lie. But our lives don't just end in death, they give way to more life. Plants grow, eggs hatch, Hooch dies, but Turner gets puppies. The physical universe expanding and thinning, yes, that's tragic, but life, real life, is comedic. Tragedy and comedy aren't salt and pepper shakers. Comedy is the whole enchilada, and tragedy is just a very necessary cheese that some dismal weirdos choose to order a la carte. That's how I know you have a sense of humor, no matter how joyless your personas become. And you're going to have to use that sense of humor, your sense of humor, to survive the emerging industry. Yes, there will always be giant successful sitcoms. But 90% of the opportunities are going to be more focused on relationships with creatives and audiences, and there's going to be a lot of competition for those jobs from people that aren't afraid to follow their own laughter. Your humor, not your perception of your boss's humor, not your speculation about the public zeitgeist, not your made-up bullshit about your spouse's reaction to a script that you use to cover your ass when you're talking to a writer. Your humor, your humanity, your honest reactions are going to be how you distinguish yourself as an asset. Everyone's funny in a different way. You might have to find that kid inside you that got hurt by comedy on the playground and have an honest conversation with them. Successfully defending yourself from a threat doesn't tend to go hand in hand with uproarious laughter. Vulnerability, transparency, failure, pain, humiliation, loneliness, fear, these are good places to look for comedy. Being a little scared and a lot out of control is at least 1/3 of every peekaboo. Maybe you know somebody that's really funny and really mean and makes everyone laugh by being really mean to them. Fine, but that's that guy. If that's not you, don't imitate it. Larry David's comedic voice rings with a lot of cynicism, but it's not cynicism causing the joy we feel when he's making us laugh. It's him being true to himself. There is no other Larry David, and he's as different from Louis as a snowflake of fucked upness, and they're both hysterically funny. They're both different from Roseanne and Cosby, Mr. Ed. The concept of comedy as empirical, made up of jokes you can measure on the same scale, regardless of context or delivery, that's a fraud perpetrated by the corporations that wish creatives were interchangeable. And it's a lie gobbled up by the least funny people in the world. People so beyond hope of ever regaining their joy that they've taken to leveling the playing field by putting comedy itself on trial. Don't let them scare you. Don't let them bully you. Cultural revolution and progress always follow the laughter, never the scowls. If you ever find yourself wondering what's funny and for some reason are unable to trust your own senses, for the love of God, defer to someone that's ever made you laugh. I did that for a while. But Dan, I work for this company and it has a brand and the guy that owns it has these sensibilities and they're not my sensibilities. I'm on the side of the creative and I consider it my job to protect the creative's vision and the harsh realities of the market. You know what? Fuck you. Honestly, that stuff just can't fly anymore. It's empty double talk from a time with less channels and bigger paychecks. If your intention is to produce comedy, you're in the sensibility business. Saying that you really like punk rock, but you have to work at this country music label and you're hoping to bring more punk to country, that's cute, but writers know you're full of shit and we talk to each other about you. It's not Schindler's List. If your tastes are different from your employer's, you don't owe it to humanity to stick around and play both sides. You owe it to comedy to find out where you can be put to use. So if there are any of you sweaters in the room, I wish you good luck. And that ends the segment of me talking to you. And for the rest of the class, we want to talk to the creatives and answer any questions that they have. So thank you for that. The lovely Erin McGathy.
Hello, Dan Harmon, what an honor.
How did that go?
It was great.
Yeah?
Yeah, you did a good job.
Yeah? All right.
So, Mr. Harmon, you hail from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is in the middle of the United States.
It's the Canada of America.
It's famous for its beer and cheese and football. How did you break into comedy writing?
My interest in comedy came at a young age. It was actually through doing improv theater in high school, and I was very mumbly. I still am. It's either I was like, but you really could not hear what I was saying. I would literally talk through my nose and stare at the floor. I'm still doing that, but it was theater sports by way of comedy sports.
Stop hitting me.
Oh, sorry. Is that loud?
Well, I don't know if it's bothering anybody else. It's fine.
Okay, it might be scaring them. All right,
it's fine. I don't know if it's disrupting the. Sorry, you're on a roll.
It was comedy sports that. Well, I mean, I got on stage and it felt like there was a purpose there, and it felt like there was freedom from a lot of anxiety. And to this day, even though I don't consider myself a performer by vocation, I mean, I think that writing is the thing that I do well enough to call myself that. Performing is like a very therapeutic thing for me that makes me feel less like crazy.
How did you make the transition from doing comedy sports in high school to working professionally?
I mean, comedy sports like sucked me in, and coming out of high school, I was allowed to do shows for them for like $20 a show, and that was enough to pay $150 a month rent in this attic, and a little extra for weed. And that was the life I was living, and I was happy doing it. And there was a splinter improv group off of comedy sports called the Dead Alewives, and that's where I really started working with this fella Rob Schraub, and we started writing comedy sketches together for that show. And then Rob revealed that, unbeknownst to any of us, he had been drawing a comic book on his kitchen table, which was called Scud the Disposable Assassin, and he started having me write scripts for that comic book. Then that comic book got optioned by Oliver Stone's company, which we thought meant we were allowed to go to Hollywood and just help out. It did not turn out to mean that, so we got to LA and found that out, but our pride and shame kept us there. Well, our money ran out, and I just got a book from the local mall called, it was Sid Field's Screenwriter's Workbook, and we wrote our first spec script, and then we just started handing that out to people. This was really before email was a viable option. People had it, but it wasn't how you exchanged anything other than like, wow, this is email. Like, that's all people no one actually used it for business or anything, let alone like giving screenplays to people. So we literally just had like 20 copies of the screenplay from Kinko's in the back seats of our cars, and we would be obnoxious and make people take them everywhere we went. And after a while, that paid off. There was somebody that wanted to work in comic books that used to be a screenwriter, did us the favor of giving our script to someone who was becoming an agent at UTA. That from there, it just becomes this string of embarrassing good luck. Like, she was becoming an agent at UTA. She gave our script to somebody that was just starting to work at Robert Zemeckis' company. They called us in for a pitch meeting. We pitched them 10 ideas. One of them was Monster House. They bought it in the room, and then all of a sudden we were the flavor of the day, and our career kind of took off from there.
Okay, so let's say I work at an ice cream shop in Winnipeg, and I have a great idea about a girl who works at an ice cream shop in Winnipeg, a television idea. how do I take that from just an idea to the big bucks? Or if I have an idea, what is your best, like now, because obviously things are different, you can't just drop your script off everywhere, or you can, what would be your best advice for somebody who really is absolutely starting out?
Yeah, it's a really frustrating answer, but I'm not entirely sure because I did what I did so long ago. It was completely different. I don't know. I know that I'm assuming that the key is the big obstacle between I don't know what an outsider, a hopeful, and somebody who's actually paying their rent writing is representation. I don't think that's changed. I don't think that because I know that when I'm looking for staff writers, I read scripts that agencies give me, and so you have to write a sample script, get it somehow to enough would-be agents. Don't trust any of them. Don't sign anything with any of them. If they're really worth their salt, they'll be willing to work on good faith and sign you when they get you your first meeting, I think. That's how it worked for us. We weren't pressured into signing. So be very careful about that. I mean, but there should be, there's got to be a way to, I think there's lists that they publish where you can send your script to all the agencies. And
do you have any different advice for somebody who might be established in Canada and might be working on a show here and is wanting to break into working in Los Angeles?
That's almost a question for somebody that would work at a place like UTA or CAA. I don't know if those agencies have Canadian offices or connections to Canadian versions of those companies. My common sense tells me that would probably be the case. I don't think Canadians are sealed off from anything but rudeness. God knows we shoot half of our television in Vancouver, and I think that there should be some way, if you actually are working in Canadian TV, you should be able to parlay that into a better shot at getting one of these agents in LA or New York to read your script.
Yeah,
I mean, the key is you have to, this is more philosophical advice, but it's advice I feel more comfortable giving than practical advice because I don't know what the fuck to do anything. But my philosophical advice is that no matter what, you have to be sure that you would be okay dying without ever having gotten a break, and that you would still be satisfied with the work that you did in a vacuum. Because if that's going to make you really sad at the end of your life as that bus hits you or that Winnipeg ice cream cone gets lodged in your throat, if the last thing you're going to think is, oh my God, I wasted my time writing, then it's not for you, because it can be such a thankless job. There's so much luck to be had, but there is always that chance that you will go to your grave screaming out into the darkness, I'm a genius, I'm a writer, read my script. I don't think it's very likely. I think that if you persevere, I think it pays off. It's just statistics. It's casting a wide net in a big ocean. But I do think philosophically, if you're not cool with that cosmic chance, then write as a hobby. Make sure that whatever you were doing the day before you died was what you wanted to be doing, so that you're not a sucker when you die.
Let's talk about the community writers' room. What's that feel like?
It's pretty racist.
Or what? You said earlier that you get scripts from agents and that's how you hire writers. Can you talk more about the process of hiring your staff writers?
I started, of course, by thinking like, oh, I'm Dan Harmon. I can tell a good writer from a bad writer by reading their script. it's really hit and miss. Like people that I hire because I really liked their script, it turned out to not be a huge asset in the writer's room. People whose scripts I was like, it's all right, turned out to be the hugest asset. A huge part of writing on a staff is not the typity and the paper stuff. It's brainstorming with a group of people, being able to play ball and not make your insecurities the whole ship's problem. To welcome the opportunity to bang your head against your own limitations for 12 hours a day. So I actually, for season 5 of Community, I had come fully around to, I didn't even read scripts because we were so far behind schedule that I just went with Chris McKenna's recommendations. Because what I found is that reading a script,
who's the co-showrunner on?
Yeah, reading a script and taking a meeting with a writer is about a 50-50 payoff in terms of like them being the right fit for a staff. Whereas going with a recommendation from someone that's worked in TV for a long time, someone saying, this person was on Family Guy, she was really good, that has like a 99% payoff. All of the people that Chris could vouch for, they turned out to be perfect for Community.
That's great. When you're going through all of those, back to the scripts that you're getting from different agents, you're going through so many, hundreds of different scripts. Like what makes like a good sample script? If you could speak, like, I don't know, obviously there's a feeling, but what are some marks of a great script that sticks out and ones that maybe you would pass over more quickly?
I honestly look for different things. I think there's 3 strengths that I recognize from a script, a TV script, whether it's a spec script for Modern Family or just an original, which by the way doesn't matter if that's one of the questions in your head. If you're, sometimes I know writers ask that a lot. They get different advice from different people. Should I write an original script? Should I write a spec script? Remind me to touch on that in a second. I don't want to derail. I think the 3 things that can jump off of a page with a sample script for me are just straight up joke telling. Does this person know how to set up and punch a joke? Do I understand what the joke is, or do I have to like turn the page back and go, wait, did I miss that joke? Because it kind of took a half a page and it didn't really, I think I missed something. Just because that's a large share of the job on a sitcom is going to be just pitching jokes. Some people are really good at that and really terrible at story. Some people are really, their jokes are so-so, and I define a so-so joke as one that when I read it, my brain immediately can beat it. Like I know that there was obviously a slightly better way to word the punchline or an even better punchline. Because I'm not the strongest joke writer in the world, so if I'm doing that while I'm reading, I'm going, well, if you'd said celery instead of carrot, that would have been twice as funny. Then it's like, you're not the greatest joke writer by my definitions. But there's lots of people like that who are really, really gifted at story, making me understand what's happening from page to page to which character and why it's important, what's at stake for this person, without ever having to, again, turn back because I missed something or zoned out. And I guess the third area is character, which kind of dovetails with that. You might be lousy at story and jokes, but I might start crying while I'm reading your comedy script, because I really, really care about the person. There's something like emotional about grounded, visceral character work. So honestly, and those are just the 3 categories that I'm recognizing for my purposes. There's probably 8,000 or infinite. Everyone's good at something. And that thing that I put a pin in about, should I write a Modern Family spec or should I write my original idea? You should showcase your strengths. If you are a person that when you watch TV, you're kind of obsessed about the jokes, the wording of them, and your fantasy job is like going to SNL or some sketch show or just being in a sitcom room and pitching jokes. I mean, you know that. If you're that person, no one else can know that. And if you are that person, then make sure that whatever you write showcases that ability. And it won't matter if you suck at story or anything. And it's up to you whether that's your original idea, because your original idea maybe is the best way to showcase your jokes, or if it's just, oh well, you know what? I also hate making up characters. I hate making up stories. So you just you write a Modern Family spec and follow their kind of format, and then you're just plugging away at all these jokes because that's what you want to be saying. Young writers, first-time staff writers, are very cheap. We're not looking for people that are going to revolutionize the way the show is made. We're looking for people who are going to be able to stay awake past midnight. We're looking for people who are going to be excited to work on the show. There's an argument to be made that if you're too much of an all-around jack of all trades, amazing. That's your phone.
That is my
Doogie
phone.
Howser ringtone.
Sorry.
Her ringtone is the Doogie Howser theme.
It's the only show I've ever watched.
Anyway, so it's really just want you to be good at something, because you're going to be cheap to hire, and we want talent at the bottom. Raw talent doesn't need to be refined, just needs to be strong,
right?
Noticeable.
So maybe you already answered this, but I hear like differing things when it comes to whether or not your sample script should be a show that's actually something that could be made, or something that more shows who you are as a writer. Like, do you hear the whole thing, like, don't submit a pilot that is focused on setting up a world. You start in the middle of this story. Like, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, if you write an original idea, if your sample script is something that you came up with, I think there's a power to that and a dual purposeness to it. If it really gets its job done, then not only are you showcasing your various gifts, but oh my God, there's a product here. So if it falls into the hands of a Sony executive or something, some stroke of luck could have you talking about, making that thing. But really, the most people, what you want to do is hard enough to just get a staff writing position on a show, and it really, in my experience, does not matter whether it's a spec of an existing show or an original product. I think the pros of the spec for a Modern Family or a Parks and Rec is obviously that the characters are preset, and if you can imitate their voices and deliver setups and punchlines in their existing framework or someone else's existing framework, then that I guess it depends on what they're looking for. They might be looking for exactly that. Oh, we just want this person to be a workhorse and fit right in here. But my favorite people, to tell you the truth, are the rubber band people. There's a pile of scripts, and then there's a couple in there that are two scripts rubber banded together. There's an original concept that's well executed, and then there is some Simpsons spec or something underneath that. Those people are very tantalizing because it makes you feel like you have less of a chance of screwing up by hiring them.
All right. Do you have any? What would you touched upon it in your talk, but what do you want executives to know about the writers' room, or to walk around with in their heads? Sorry,
I guess
it's the worst question ever.
I mean, I'd like them to know that the writers' room is a very sacred place that reacts very poorly to outside tampering. I think a good showrunner can somehow keep the writers in the dark about any political tumult that's going on in the rest of the hallowed halls. I am not that showrunner. I am very impulsive and transparent. So if you spend 10 minutes on the phone with me telling me that you're concerned about the direction of the show, that's going to go into the writer's room. Is that what you want? Maybe you should just lie to me and tell me that we're doing a good job. We're not motivated the same way that gardeners are. We're not just so scared of getting fired that you can make us plant a flower better. I think the fear is toxic. I think that the enmity between the suits and the creatives, it can really get out of control and cast a pall over what should really be a organic, sacred process.
All right. Well, let's hear from these nice people and see if they have any questions. I set the bar pretty low. So, is there anyone?
Got a
we
hand
have
there.
one right there.
Hey, Dan, thanks. Love the show. It's canceled now?
It was the nicest Canadian way.
Yes.
What if that's how I found out?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's canceled now.
And I wonder if you could just comment on a rumor out there. As you know, Joel did an excellent job at the annual press dinner, and there's a rumor that had something to do with it. Could you just comment on that, because it's been circulating out there?
Rumored that I had something to do with it?
No, that his performance at the annual press dinner had something to do with the cancellation of the show. Yes. So that's out there. It's the conspiracy side's out there a lot.
Is the theory that he did bad or good?
No, that he was so evisceratory to the administration that some shadowy guy walked in and canceled your show.
I don't think the American government runs with anything near that efficiency.
Thank you.
I don't think
Thank you.
I also don't think 9/11 was an inside job for the same reason. I just can't imagine any bureaucracy getting that much done. No, I don't think there's anything to that rumor. We actually down there was more, the zeitgeist was more that he didn't do that great at the dinner. He kind of got a little needled by our gossip bloggers and things.
Right, yeah.
Will there be a rebirth of Community? Do you see it?
There were those rumors that you may have heard, if you're Community fans, that were as confusing to me as they were to you. I thought that they were just phantoms, like aftershocks of a previous rumor. But I was subsequently given information that revealed that there was something to those rumors that I think I'm at liberty to say just what I know, which is that I can't remember if they told me not to say this or not, but of course, the last thing I would want to do is disappoint Sony. So I know Sony is this is the place where they excel, is brokering deals and making the impossible possible through just brute force and contracts and tractors full of money and smoky rooms they were talking to Hulu, and Hulu was very responsive. I would temper that by saying I feel just as a regular fellow looking at the whole thing, like it seems so impossible to pull off. So many deals would have to be made that aren't currently made. So many contracts would have to be negotiated, and it just seems. I prefer to be pessimistic and then get surprised.
One right here.
Can you talk a little bit about one of the things about Community that we've all loved, or that I've loved, is the fact that it's sort of, on the surface, effortlessly multicultural. Come on, man. Can you talk a little bit about, did you find that you had to reflect that with who you were hiring in the writer's room, or is that something that just came from your experience growing up? It's one of the better, I don't know, it's just one of the better shows out there for that.
Yeah, I mean, the two things that I'm really proud of is that the cast was, it was the phrase we were using was race-neutral script and race-neutral, well, it wasn't a race-neutral casting process for various reasons that I still don't quite understand, but that I don't think people should overreact to when they hear it. Because I think there are reasons. The casting industry is built around the idea that people like pants and shirts come in different shades and different sizes and different things. And it's very easy for us to go, well, the definition of progress is being absolutely blind to those differences. But casting is like there's a I don't know if we need to do away with it in casting, and I don't know if it's there for a good reason. I really don't know. I kind of don't understand that, but I know that with the community casting process, we had to work within a kind of racially oriented casting system and build that out into an effectively race-neutral process. And what I mean by that is that, first of all, the script had to not define anybody by their background, or it just mentions ages. I think Abed is defined as half Palestinian, and I felt like that was important to his character and the story, but for some reason. But beyond that, it's just their ages and their genders. But I remember the process did involve, like, okay, it's Wednesday, it's Asian Annie Day. It's Thursday. We're seeing all the Latina Shirleys, and then the white Shirleys, and then the black Shirleys, and I don't remember why it was that way, but I remember it had to be kind of stacked out that way, because I remember African American women coming into the audition and going, "Boy, the old crew's back together out there." But this time it was we were being very painstaking about it. We had it was almost like a bingo card process that we had, where if we really loved somebody and they were white, we had to have that conversation where we're like, well, that's another white person, and we knew that at the end of the finish line, if there was a room full of white people, it absolutely wasn't going to feel like real life, especially not a real, community college. The idea that is sort of germane to the whole thing, that it should feel like you've run into a building from the rain, and these are just the people that were there, like a good zombie movie or any kind of bottle story, and we knew it was going to start having that ivory feel. So we did have to be very particular and go like, okay, we just cast another honky. We now need to like really cross our fingers that the next three people we cast are also coincidentally diverse, while simultaneously not reverse discriminating against anybody. And I remember the conversations where it's hard to not think about an elephant. You think of an elephant, and we were trying to assemble something that felt random. I remember Yvette Nicole Brown going, this is the weirdest show in the world. You have 2 black people on it. It's weird. It feels like real life, because they're not all black with 1 token white guy, and it's not all white people with 1 token black person. It feels like regular randomness, because there just happens to be 2 African Americans. Anyways, the other thing I was on the writing side, Angela Bromstead, who was working at NBC, she out of the blue said something that terrified me, which is, I really think you should have 50% women on your writing staff. I don't know if that's ever been mandated to, no pun intended, to anybody. It was my first show, and I remember thinking like, this is awful. Not because I think that women aren't good writers, but because I had this philosophy in my head that you can't limit your palette. It's hard to find talent. You can't say, and also they should all be redheads, or also they should all be Native American, or half of them should be this, or 20% of them that. It just felt contrary to the primary agenda, which is to assemble the best writing staff in the world. But I think that's old-timey stinking thinking. And as time went by, well, first of all, we did it. We cast half. It was our writing staff was half female, and it really it really helped the whole like the groundedness of the show, the dialogue between having a representation of how the earth is constructed gender-wise. It helped us write better comedy, in my opinion.
When they asked you for a 50% female writing staff, were they asking you because they thought that it would help the creative process, or because it fulfilled a
It certainly wasn't a quota, because I mean the other shows, it's hard to find. You get less scripts from female writers there is that kind of minimum quota. So the good female writers, they get snatched up very quickly, and you have to just read a lot more in order to have that balance. She wasn't saying you should do that because it's fair to women. I think she was just saying, you know what, your show is about people, and half the people are ladies, and shouldn't that be the case in your writer's room? And it was an unforgettable lesson for me. That libertarian kind of like urge to be like, yeah, but it's not fair, that's not practical, that's not right, has to be balanced by the fact that you're in a system that has all this momentum. So if you're talking about diversity and gender and stuff like that, you have to I have to remind myself that there's momentum that has to be countered, I think, with a little bit of action, a little proactiveness.
You talked about the submitting spec scripts and how important that is for getting hired in the first place. But you'd also founded Channel 101, and I wonder what your thoughts are on producing like a low-budget pilot as a means of sort of getting yourself out there. Is that still a valuable thing to do?
I think that's a phenomenal thing to be able to do. I think it gives you a huge advantage. I mean, nobody likes to read. We're just maybe that's different up here. You guys seem like very smart people, but speaking for myself and all the slobs down south, like if we can click on something and see like talent, the way that it's going to be on a TV screen, that would be. I think that's just the practical thing to do. It's hard for me to look at a sea of people that ask, how do I get my script read? Because I know how it's just, you have to cast such a wide net, and it's so hard. It's like, it's a lot more, I can say with a lot more hope in my heart that if you are an auteur, then do it. Show people that you're an auteur. Like, make something that people will pass around and watch and capitalize on that. If you're a great writer and you don't give a crap about directing or editing, but you know a great director and a great editor, team up, do that. I think that should be the new way we do it, because there's nothing stopping us anymore. I mean, we sit around and act like we want to be making TV, but aside from the money, there is no difference between what you can do by yourself and what you used to need a studio to do. You can now actually, if you really wanted to, if someone put a gun to your head and said make a 20-minute sitcom in your kitchen, you could.
You're really funny. We have time for one more question.
It may be too soon, but I was just wondering if there are any ideas that are scratching at your eyeballs that you'd be willing to share with a room of feral, struggling Canadian writers.
Now I want to write about feral Canadian writers. Sounds terrifying. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. I don't know if you guys get sick of that stereotype, but I guess you don't, because you're so nice. You're just like, oh, they're making fun of us again. I'm so up in the air about what to do next. I have a movie that I really, really want to write, and I've wanted to write for 15 years that I'll probably therefore never write. I often tell people, please don't focus on that idea that you've been kicking around, not when you're getting started. I don't know if I should now actually do that or if I'll be able to, but I don't know if I want to go back to network TV. I don't know if I want to turn my back on it. Well, the iron's still hot. There's a literary agent telling me that I could make just as much money writing a book, not a real book, like one of those Nick Offerman books where I'm eating a pork chop on the cover. I want to go back to features. I will miss network TV. I love doing Rick and Morty on Adult Swim. I keep getting drunk with Mitch Hurwitz of Arrested Development and talking about this idea we have that would work great at Netflix. But mean, I think I failed to give you the example nugget that you were looking for, but I don't want. I'm not. You'll steal it. He nodded his head.
In addition to final, let's end on this note.
A wrap.
First of all, thank you so much for joining us here in Banff. It's nice to see a face. Is there, you mentioned Sid Field's book. Are there any other resources that you could recommend, or websites, or Twitter feeds, or?
If you're stuck on story, I did years ago. I wrote like these tutorials for story. It's not intended to tell you how to write. If you're feeling a creative flow and you're doing your own thing, then you should just let that shine through you and do your own thing. If you're stuck and you feel like the reason you're stuck is maybe because the paint by numbers of story structure aren't your wheelhouse, you can Google my name plus story circle, and there's like some tutorials that I wrote for Channel 101 kids years and years and years ago, which people seem to get a lot of use out of. That Sid Field book, I still recommend it. He's so pedantic about this has to happen on page 10, and your protagonist has to do this and all that stuff. I think it's really, when you were in school and the gym coach made you do layups and everything was so precise, like later on you can do the slam dunks and the traveling and the between your legs. I don't know anything about sports.
You're not supposed to do traveling.
But I mean, they verge on traveling in,
right.
in the NBA, but you get the whistle blown on you in high school. The point being that you got to learn the rules to break them, and I think that like Sid Field is so incredibly he's like a drill sergeant, and I think it helps you get something done.
Great. Well, Dan's going to be moderating the drama masterclass. It's happening at 11:30 with Nick Pizzolatto, the creator of True Detective. Thank you so much for joining us. I think this is the best panel at this conference.
Oh, great.
This is the best thing to happen.